Yo voy a contar y voy a apagar mi micrófono. 3, 2, 1, en vivo.
Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our presentation. We're very happy to be here in this conference, and for this presentation, we're going to have my participation. I'm Lupita Rodríguez Bulnes from the Autonomous University in Nuevo León in Mexico. And today I'm presenting with Diana Gabriela Zamudio, who is my master's study student, or I'm her tutor. And we're going to do this presentation, which is titled A Professional Development Course on Globally Networked Learning Environments. This is a study we are conducting as part of a master's program, which is Maestría en Lingüística Aplicada a la Enseñanza de Lenguas Extranjeras en la Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, where Diana is doing her master's in applied linguistics, and I'm the faculty advisor. So could you please go on to the next one? Okay, so I pass it on now to Diana, who has a very interesting exercise for us. Diana?
Good evening, everyone. We would like to know, where are you joining us from today? So you can grab your phones, enable your camera and scan the QR code that you have on the screen. And we will ask you to write your name, the city, the country where you're joining us from today, as well as your institution. On the bottom right side, you have a pink button with a plus sign. You click there and you can type your name, again, the city where you're joining us from, country, as well as your institution. Wow, Copan, Honduras, District of Columbia. Tegucigalpa. Let's just give a few minutes for the audience to write their information.
Yes. Honduras. Santa Rosa de Copan, beautiful place. Andrea from Monterrey.
Hello, Andrea. So it seems that we have connected 3 countries, Dr. Lupita, today.
Okay.
You know, we appreciate that diversity in this audience, as it's shown, you know, in the Padlet link. It reminds me of the title of this session, which is Globally Network Learning Environments. And since it's this one exactly, a very good example of a globally network learning environment. So moving on, thank you for joining us today.
Okay. Well, now I'd like to explain a little bit how we came up with this project, and it is Diana's study in her master's degree. But I'm going to tell you a bit on how I started with this project some years ago. In the beginning, we started thinking about the concept of intercultural competence, how intercultural competence being part of the training that foreign language teachers should have was somehow absent in our program, in our bachelor's degree program. So I started working with students from the area of French as a foreign language, and they're the ones who started being more interested in the project when I started this at the university. And we started thinking about what is it that people understand by intercultural competence, and how that is part of the training that foreign language teachers get in our university. So we conducted a study with the teachers in our school first to see how they visualized intercultural competence, what ideas and perceptions they had, and how they felt being teacher trainers with respect to having or not intercultural competence. So we did this study in the BA in Applied Linguistics in my university, and we realized that teachers felt very strong in many areas of their training and how they performed. But in the area of intercultural competence, because one of the strong perception was that they had to be somebody who had lived in another country or learned the language in another country, then it was somehow limited, or it was reported as something as we're missing this in our training. So that was one of the things we found out, and then we realized that it was actually an ideal intercultural competence vision that they had, where only living in another country or the country where they learned the language they were teaching was counted as, yes, I am interculturally competent. So after that, I continue with the interest in this concept, and I teach a class in the master's program in Applied Linguistics, and we have a course specifically on intercultural competence. What we did in our class, and this we did for 2 semesters, was to analyze now the concept of intercultural competence in the instruments of teaching, for example, textbooks. This is a study we conducted as well. We analyzed textbooks to see whether they were promoting intercultural competence through the language class, and what kind of activities, what ideas of intercultural competence were being taught through the books. So that was like the second stage. Then Diana came along, and she was interested in global networks and international education. So one of the things that was also her interest was to see whether intercultural competence was promoted through these virtual exchanges, and how that could be studied and how that could be promoted in the language classes. So this is the third stage that this project has gone through, and it is the study and the description of the study that Diana is working on, which is the main part of this presentation, plus some preliminary findings that we have now after she's done some of the studies. Okay, so this is like the background on how we came up with this idea of intercultural competence in language teaching, and now combined with the concept of visual exchange as part of the language classes. So Diana, on to you to talk about the background for your study, specifically on global networks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This is a very meaningful project to me because I've been working on globally networked learning environments for the past 4 years. I was very, very fortunate to be a grantee of the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching back in 2016. You know, the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching program brings teachers from all around the world to the US for a semester-long program to pursue individual inquiry projects. We took professional development courses, we attended to conferences, we were placed at Indiana University, Campus Bloomington, under the guidance of the Center for International Education Development and Research at the School of Ed. And we just basically spent the semester observing classes, observing the best strategies, trying to develop our inquiry project. So I arrived to the US back then in 2016. I used to work as an elementary school teacher in Mexico. And we struggled with motivating our students into English language learning. So I arrived to the US, to Indiana University, with a broad general question: how to engage and motivate Mexican elementary students towards learning English as a foreign language. And it was through all of these classroom observations, attending US courses, and especially attending the Global Education Forum held in Philadelphia in this year, where I came across this strategy called globally networked learning environments, which became eventually my specific inquiry focus. You know, globally networked learning, it's also known as COIL, so Collaborative Online International Learning. And in the past years, it's been referred to as virtual exchange. Just as we can see on this slide, the leaders, the pioneers of this redesign of learning environments, it's McGill University in Canada and the State University of New York in the US. And just as we can read here, you know, globally networked learning integrates global perspectives into the curriculum via online programming and research in connection with partner institutions from around the world. So it's basically, as Begin Kowet, a professor in Canada, described in 2013, globally networked learning environments are partnerships that encourage students to collaborate with and learn from students in classrooms elsewhere in the planet. And this became my specific inquiry focus during the fall semester of 2016 at Indiana University. I came back to Mexico in December 2016, you know, with this proposal, my inquiry project proposal. Globally networked learning environments not only motivate students or engage students into English language learning, but also they provide authentic learning environments which allow students to use the language and for it to be appealing to them. It develops also intercultural perspectives, increases cultural awareness, and promotes the use of technology as an instructional tool. You know, right now, the students or the learners who we are working with, they are digital learners. So they not only read information, consume information, but they also produce it and share it. They communicate it in previously unimaginable ways. So we as teachers, we have to push the physical limits of our classrooms, you know, to promote learning beyond the school settings, because the world has become our classroom. Now, I arrived to Mexico and I was very, you know, driven and motivated and willing to share or what I have learned at Indiana University with my colleagues back at my elementary school, my school district. But when I talk to teachers about and administrators, school administrators about connecting classrooms around the world, promoting collaborative learning among students in different parts of the world via video conferencing tools. At that time, it was Zoom. It was not Zoom, the most popular tool, but it was Skype. And Skype, WebEx, it just sounded like science fiction. It was completely far away from the reality that we had 4 years ago. And I kept trying to learn more strategies, and I was very interested in learning from different global perspectives in education. So I applied for the Spanish assistant program in France. In 2017, I was placed in a small village at the north of France called Arras, and I was placed in a lycée, which is a middle school, high school, and I had this idea that professors in France will be more open to the incorporation of technology as an instructional tool in the class. And it was very surprising for me to observe that the same challenges that I faced back in Mexico, in my school district, in my whole community, were very similar challenges that I was facing that time in France. It is important to mention that during this year, the Ministry of Education banned the use of cell phones in high school. So this was a major drawback to the project, because we were using Slack, which is an online platform, and we connected a high school classroom in Mexico with the high school students I was working with at that time. And we had to have a special permission from the authorities for our students to be able to use their phones for this multicultural project. So it was very surprising for me that it was not only back in Mexico, but all schools around the world, were facing the same challenges. In 2016, these challenges were time zones. Teachers asked me when I tried to motivate them and try to promote this redesign in the learning environments. There were always questions such as how much time do I need to invest in, creating the partnerships? What activities are we going to implement? How do we find a common topic that is both meaningful for both groups, both classes? What about time differences? What about the technology? Who's going to pay for, the digital platforms or the video conferencing tool? All these sorts of questions were the same that I heard back in Mexico. So I felt the need of, redesigning my inquiry project, giving it a more solid theoretical basis for professors and teachers to be able to implement it within their teaching praxis. And well, this was 4 years ago in 2016, and France then 2017, 2018. And today we are living in a very different education context. What we're doing right now, it's no longer science fiction. We've connected so far 4 countries around the world through a video conferencing tool. So this is precisely a globally networked learning environment. Education context has changed. Life in a pandemic has revolutionized face-to-face education. 9 months ago, 8 months ago, education was limited to a physical context, and we relied on technology as well as the World Wide Web to have access to information. Now, months after our life in lockdown, education has shifted towards 5.0 societies, where humans are not only the center of innovation and technological transformation, but also mutual understanding and global cooperation towards common goals, which is now our common goal right now is to find a vaccine, to get the vaccine approved for everyone to have access to it. And globally networked learning environments make this possible. Now, it is very, very important to mention the close link between the evolution of technology, society, and education. Dr. Hassan Said in 2018 explained that we have shifted towards education 5.0, which objective is to nurture thinking learners who are agents of their own learning. You know, to develop learners with the global mindset through meaningful learning experiences in a transformative learning environment. And Dr. Hassan Said describes a meaningful learning experience as learning that can take place anywhere, anytime, from any device, with and from anyone. You know, learning online, this is not new, but the flexibility that access to new technologies have granted us today makes students as well as teachers know to be able to learn and cooperate in global platforms. Virtual mobility and exchange learning management systems allow learners as well as teachers to learn from any device with and from anyone.
Yeah. I'd like to say something about this, with this concept that Diana is talking about the meaningful learning experience. And I was telling Diana that it's very interesting to show this evolution and these links between technology, society, and education, and how that has an impact on what we're doing now, especially in this study. I was telling her that back in probably 25 or 28 years ago, I worked in a project in our state where we would have these learning communities, online learning communities. Now, I was telling her this because it sounds like history, but back in those days, we would use those big computers and we would do some programming in order to have internet and things like that. And what we find is that it is the basis and the crucial concept of the meaningful learning experience stays as part of the educational goal that we're looking for. But what we find interesting now in these GN COIL virtual exchange proposals is that flexibility, and it is that possibility that we can bring to different scenarios, taking this definition or this proposal by Dr. Said, where it says we can learn anywhere, anytime, from any device and from anyone. So that opening of knowledge possibilities and knowledge opportunities is what this new technology brings to us, and brings that. Before the pandemic, that would bring that to the classrooms and the schools. Nowadays, with the pandemic, all of that is even now more accelerated because we have that now in our houses. We have that in our living room, we have that in our patio, we have that anywhere we go. Some of my students tell me, sorry if you hear a lot of noises, but I'm driving. Sorry if you hear noises, but I'm on the bus. So all of this is telling me that the way technology is now pushing or promoting these environments is coming to has come to us in a very rapid way, in a very unexpected as well, in a very unexpected way. So it is important, I think, to keep in mind, and this is, as an advisor for Diana's project, this is what we're always saying. What we have underlined today, that it is the idea of the meaningful learning stays, but it is so important to include this element of technology, so we can fit more into this digital era that has been put in front of us to tell us this is how things operate now. Needless to say, we also have discussed that this technology and these possibilities are not for everybody, and that there are contexts where we have to analyze the application of this study, or how fruitful it would be in one scenario different from another. And something we need to, we want to bring into the discussion as well, not to sound always ideal with this proposal, but to see that there could be some challenges along the way. Okay, so now, Diana, if you could go on with professional context. Thank you.
I would like to share just a brief background of what my professional context is here in Mexico. In Mexico, English is taught as a foreign language. I currently work at a language center of a state university in the northeast part of Mexico. Our English language courses are based on the Common European Framework for Language Reference, and we have developed 10 courses following the Common European Framework. We call them level intro to level 9, and after level 9 we offer TOEFL courses. So I would say that most of our students take English courses in order to get an international certification exam. There's a total of 15 English language teachers currently working with us as well. And as I told you before, when I came back to Mexico and I wanted to share my inquiry project among my colleagues and the school administrators, I realized that there was a need of updating it and redesigning the Fulbright Inquiry Project. There was a need for a more solid theoretical basis, and this is why I decided to enroll into the master's degree program in applied linguistics to foreign language teaching, where I was very honored to meet Dr. Lupita Bulnes, and I'm now a student at the 3rd semester of the program. We will share with you very briefly some insights of our action research project. It's an ongoing action research project. And as statement of the problem, we have described, that when we learn a foreign language, it's important to give language a function. Otherwise, learning is not meaningful. And I've observed that few experiential learning opportunities are offered to students who take foreign language courses at the research site. Even though that teachers know how important it is to promote, develop, incorporate interculturality in the curriculum, and for it to be considered one of the most important goals when learning a foreign language, it is still challenging for teachers to develop intercultural competence in class. And I have also observed in the research site that professional development training focuses mostly on textbook content as well as administrative processes, rather than on developing teaching skills. And it's very important for teachers to be updated in 21st century learning. Therefore, we, based on these observations, we have developed these 4 research questions. Which experiential learning strategies are developed in English as foreign language courses? What are the challenges? We know that there are challenges. We want to know which ones are they. When teachers face when developing intercultural competence in an EFL course, which skills do EFL teachers need the most training on to update their teaching practice, and which strategy to implement in order to update ELT praxis regarding experiential learning, intercultural competence, and 21st century skills. The objective of this study is to describe the experiential learning strategies that are currently applied in the research site, to explore the challenges when developing intercultural competence, to examine skills that are essential for foreign language facilitators to develop in order to be updated in 21st century learning in the English Language Center and the public university in the north of Mexico. As an outcome of this research, a professional development course in order to train foreign language teachers in the design of experiential learning activities that foster 21st century skills, interculturality, and the use of technology as an instructional tool will be designed. Now, in our theoretical framework, we have explored how globalization, 21st century skills, foreign language teaching, experiential learning, education, and technology have a strong influence in foreign language teaching learning process. I would like to briefly describe what we have included in each of the sections. Our first section of the theoretical framework views how foreign language education has been reimagined and reinvented. Easy access to internet has allowed to learn from authentic materials and social media, as well as video conferencing tools have learners to interact in real-world cultural environments. In the second section of our theoretical framework, we describe 21st century skills, and it's very interesting that several authors have tried to define these skills, and although focus may vary, they fall upon the same categories, such as the use of technology, digital literacy, global understanding, metacognition, and effective communication. In the third section of our theoretical framework, we provide a brief insight on foreign language teaching approaches from antiquity to the post-method era. On the fourth section, we included models of Dewey, Lewin, and Kolb about experiential learning, which is basically learning through personal experience by integrating analysis and reflection. And in the last section of our theoretical framework, we described how the evolution of education is closely linked to the evolution of technology. According to Dr. Bong, a professor at Indiana University, learning today is more visual, blended, it's game-based, it's immersive, it's digital, it's comfortable, it's modifiable, and it's personal. So it is important to remark that the evolution was not technology itself, but the way that this was incorporated into an education context. And just as education has changed because of the evolution of new technology, so have the principles of teaching instruction. These are the five sections that are included in our theoretical framework. Now, our methodology is still in progress. We are currently developing it in this third semester. This is an action research study that will be conducted at the English Language Department of a Language Center of a state university in the northeast part of Mexico. And there will be 15 participants. All of them will be English as a foreign language teachers. This is our data collection plan. Now, our research questions focus on experiential learning strategies, as well as the challenges that teachers face when developing cultural and intercultural competence and the skills that English as a foreign language teachers need the most training on. We have merged the first two instruments on experiential learning and intercultural competence into the first survey of our study, which measures traditional learning versus experiential learning, as well as the challenges. And we have developed a second survey in order for us to analyze which are the competencies for 21st century teachers, following the survey made by Professor Ramirez at Tec de Monterrey. Now, we used Mentimeter because of its efficacy and its cost effectiveness. On the first image, you will see this is an example of an item included in the first survey. The objective was to identify the trend if teachers tend to apply experiential learning strategies in their teaching, or if they tend towards traditional teaching. We can see here, for example, the question was, what is the aim of your course? Discovering inner potentials or scoring marks and grade. The teachers responded, their response tends to be experiential learning. And on the second image, this is an item of the second survey, and its aim was to analyze how confident teachers felt when applying, developing as well 21st century teaching skills. Here, for example, the item analyzes how confident teachers feel when organizing and implementing learning situations by having the ability to engage and provide students with tools to cope with everyday situations. And we can clearly observe here that they feel extremely confident about it. Now, what do we learn from these surveys? Dr.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Diana. So now, what have we learned from these surveys? As Diana explained, it was our interest to see at least 3 different things. One was how teachers responded when they were asked whether they used, whether they worked in a traditional way or in a more experiential learning way. The second thing we wanted to explore was whether they could see challenges and what challenges they were thinking about when thinking about intercultural competence. And the last thing was, excuse me, the last thing was to see how they felt about, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. How they felt about the, on their profile, how these skills that have been outlined for 21st century teachers were part of their profile or not. And what we found, at least these are preliminary findings. Overall, it is clear that experiential learning predominates. And this is an interesting discussion Diana and I had, because what you get from the surveys is what teachers declare of what they do in the class. We realize that it is their own perceptions they are deriving these answers from, because on one hand, Diana is part of this teaching center. And as far as her experience goes, there's still a lot of traditional learning, traditional teaching in that school. However, teachers, when they're asked what kind of activities they do, there's this perception they have, and I think the discussion goes like that, whether they see what they do as experiential learning, and they may have a different idea on what that is, or they are trying to sound as if they were more updated in their teaching style, in their teaching techniques. So what we find is contradicts in some way what can be observed. However, this is getting their perceptions, this is getting what they say, what they do in the classroom. So that's what we get. On the second question is, there seems to be some training and guidance for integrating intercultural competence in English language teaching. According to the teachers, when they're asked if they've had training in this area, some of them say yes, and what we find in the survey is the same thing. Is they say they have had training. However, when you know what they do, when you see the catalog of courses that have been done in that center for training, they don't really relate directly to intercultural competence development. So then again, we have this idea of what do they understand by intercultural competence training? If what they have seen in their training, in the training they have received, has some idea or some concept of culture, then they say, yeah, I've been trained in that. So it is again, what you think is intercultural competence training versus what they see or what they have understood or declare as being trained in intercultural competence. Next, there seems to be not enough time, is what they say, to integrate intercultural competence activities in the courses. So here's some room, here's some space for part of the redesigning that we would like to do of those classes, because maybe the kind of activities they're doing require more time, or maybe they have not integrated in their regular activities the intercultural competence component. And then the last bit, encouragingly, it is shown that participants feel confident, and this was very interesting and very good to know. They feel confident concerning all the competencies for the 21st century teachers. So they scored high in this one, saying that, yeah, they feel confident, they fit the profile, okay? So one of the things we talked about and we discussed these preliminary findings is that we don't have a chance to, we're going to do the proposal, but we don't have a chance to go and interview the students, or we don't have a chance to go and sit in the class or observe the class through the platform. Therefore, the proposal has that limitation. But what has been very interesting is to see how we, as English teachers or foreign language teachers, how do we see ourselves when we are asked whether we follow this kind of teaching or a more updated style of teaching? You know, teachers claim that they follow an experiential learning approach, and it is not always, we're not always sure whether that happens in the classroom because of the experiences we have observed. So it's been an interesting conversation, they say, with what they tell us, what they give us in the survey, and what we know of what happens in the classroom. Okay, so those are the findings we have so far. As to the proposal of the course, Diana has come up with this 6-module proposal. If you want to explain, Diana.
This is a proposal for the professional development course on global and network learning environments. So far, we have considered 6 modules. The first one, and I believe it's the most important, is the module of intercultural competence, to provide theory of what intercultural competence means, is, and how to apply it effectively in foreign language classes. The second module will give all the background theory of what global and network learning environments is and how to redesign our current learning environments. Module 3 will provide with tools, digital tools, to facilitate, the collaboration among teachers and students around the world. So technologies for global and network learning environments. Module 4 will describe global collaboration, previous partnerships, organizations, NGOs that can become partnerships, or that can offer these virtual exchange for both teachers and students. Module 5, it's kind of like the wrap up of the course, just the easy steps to get started into the redesign of a learning environment, turning it into a globally networked. And module 6 will require teachers to give their feedback. This is an action research project, so we are constantly analyzing, reflecting, learning, and try to start the process all over again. So we're very interested in the feedback of teachers, as well as share their evidence, and maybe we can create a folder of strategies or activities, or as well partnerships that have been created. So these are the 5 modules that we intend to develop next semester.
Okay. All right. So About the conclusions, thank you. The conclusions that we have so far, and as Diana mentioned, this is the feedback that we get from where we have done the presentations has been very useful, has been very helpful for us. So this participation in this conference is also part of our ongoing process of feeding our project with the best opinions. So these are some of the conclusions we could share with you. It's important to include the vision of globally networked environments in foreign language teaching because it promotes not only language learning, but it also develops intercultural competence. Now, why do we say this? Because we find that through the teachers' answers in the surveys, as well as analyzing some of the syllabus and the programs that they have for the classes, that this is an absent element. In some of the classes, it could be basically introduced, but not in the way that is being proposed in our modules. Foreign language teachers need to be engaged into redesigning their learning environments to fit the needs of digital learners. One of the things I think is important to reflect now, because of the pandemic, and because after this pandemic, I think we're going to have to redesign the way we worked between face-to-face and online teaching. The place or the space that this opens for globally networked environments is crucial. So I think the training that teachers have as foreign language teachers, it needs to include the idea of including technology, and not only because of technology, but including this approach and this vision of learning environments helped and enriched by technology. Diana, do you want to read the last two, please?
Sure. Foreign language teaching professional development should consider training teachers in the design of globally networked learning environments. We cannot just ask teachers to implement them, but we have to properly train them, give them all the background theory. As I stated before, I cannot just come and try to convince my colleagues to redesign their learning environment. You know, we have to provide them with the tools, with the background theory. We have to share with them what has been done by other institutions and partnerships around the world for them to be able, to start to design and implement and learn from a globally networked learning environment. So professional development should consider the training of teachers in these designs of learning environments. And action research in foreign language teaching is relevant. It advises teachers to reflect, and take further action after being carried out, which is precisely what we are doing today.
Okay.
Dr. Lupita, would you like to close?
Yeah. Yeah, so with this presentation, we'd like to thank you and we appreciate your feedback. We are very pleased and very honored to be part of this conference and to see for ourselves that this is one of those examples of GNLEs or global networks that we can participate in. We're very grateful for the invitation, and we're very thankful if you can send us any feedback. And here is our Facebook and email. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will really appreciate your feedback.